Well, that's some damn fine kissing up to the staff. And given that mine provided Diet Dr. Pepper to me, I echo that sentiment for keeping me well caffeinated. As I discussed in my opening statement, the Chinese have exploited local political, economic, and sometimes even cultural conditions to undermine American national security interests. Sometimes they do it by securing bilateral and multilateral agreements that block American goals. Other times they do it by creating instability. But they are actively doing it, and I want to hear from you how they do it. Could you walk us through, region by region, how China is exploiting these conditions to undermine U.S. interests?
You bet, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the opportunity to just jump right into that. As we run around the continent, most of the playbook that China uses occurs everywhere around the continent. But there are some regional trends. So as I roll around, everything is true everywhere in Africa, but there are some focuses that change a little bit. If I were to start in Central and Southern Africa, of course, it most heavily relies on the mineral space and the extractive space. These are the minerals that they've gone into fast and hard. And part of it, part of the playbook that I think you're asking for was first just being there first and having an incredibly high risk tolerance. And by being able to go in without having to worry about meeting the needs of their shareholders or their board of directors, and being able to focus on just capturing that market without worrying about turning a profit right away, that allowed them to keep and maintain the entire supply chain. Of course, we try and open a minerals processing plant in the U.S. There's a lot of permitting and issues in that. Same with Europe. But in China, where they don't care, they were able to toss that up right off the bat. And then once they had a sort of a dominant position there, they were able to use that to continue to maintain. One of the things we've seen recently is the global need for lithium is almost infinite and vastly 30, 40 times more than we currently have. So there's a lot of interest in engaging in new lithium operations. So as Western companies were looking to both look at mining, at processing, and at the whole supply chain, China immediately dumped a lot of lithium on the market, crashing the price. And of course, what you see there then is as these Western companies were going to solicit financing and talking to banks and doing that kind of work, with the crashing lithium price, suddenly the projects were no longer viable. And that kind of manipulation is a big part of the threat that they have against the United States. When we look in East Africa, we see a lot in the regards of infrastructure kinds of investment, the traditional roads, rail, bridges, that kind of thing, hydroelectric facilities. But let's not forget digital infrastructure. Being in first in that matters as well. A lot of these can be found as just debt vehicles. I've on multiple occasions dealt with governments that have asked my help in finding investors to privatize some of their, because they can't maintain the debt. But then they find that the market value of this item is double or is half what they still owe on the facility. So they're just trapped into that forever. That's hugely problematic. And in the digital side, of course, if you want to be part of the modern economy, you're going to need to have trusted, safe networks. And so basically every country on the African continent has come to me to ask help in encouraging the big tech companies, Oracle, Microsoft, Google, et cetera, to come to their country. But they won't come if they can't trust the networks that are there. And so many of the countries are faced with the issue of, if we want to have a modern digital economy, if we know where we need to be in the future, we actually need to rip out those systems and replace them, because we simply can't operate in isolation with substandard technology in which all of our data is now subject to Chinese manipulation. And that's been hugely problematic across the continent. In West Africa, it's often kind of a mix of the two. But one thing I would add to that that's not frequently mentioned is, in addition to this insatiable desire for minerals, it's all sorts of extractives, including timber, the deforestation, but especially fishing. When you look at the fishing grounds of, especially of Western Africa, but really of all coastal Africa, that is the protein for the people. But when you see these Chinese trawlers coming in and utterly destroying the fishing grounds, and you can see them on over-the-shelf, unclassified satellite imagery, trawling back and forth, then suddenly doing a beeline 60 miles offshore, meet a buy boat, offload all the fish, come back to port and say, oh, we didn't catch anything again today. And they don't catch anything any day, at least according to their official records. And meanwhile, the amount of food available for the Africans is much more expensive, in much less supply, and this is a direct and tremendous threat. And forgive me for going on a little bit more on that subject, but it's not one that normally gets mentioned, but it is indicative of the business model that the Chinese entertain on the continent.
Now, of all those threats you described, what keeps you up at night? What worries you the most?
I ain't gonna lie, I'm actually really excited to work in Africa, and there are a lot of really positive stories. So actually, I sleep pretty well in that regard. I'm all in on Africa's future because I really believe in the place. A lot of people talk about how, in 2040 it's going to be this much, but the fact is, Africa is hugely important right now, and I'm excited by that. But you asked the question, so let me go ahead and address that. Part of it is the kind of irreparable damage that a lot of these operations can have. I'd say probably the number one example was just recently when a Chinese tailings dam collapsed and they dumped something like 40 million gallons of sulfuric acid into the Kafue River, just potentially destroying the livelihoods of 6 million people. That was just the one example, but that kind of shoddy behavior and completely ignoring the rules-based order in which they ostensibly live, that kind of thing becoming systemic, yeah, that would be what keeps me up.
Thank you. Senator Booker.